It's all live time. All right. We'll go Grace, Seth, and Andrew for the order.
Cool.
All right. In 3, 2, 1. And welcome to episode 438 of Cinematary. I'm your host, Zach Dennis, and I'm here with
Grace Winburn,
Seth Troyer,
and Andrew Swafford.
In today's episode, we're going to be talking about movies that we saw this week in part 1. And in part 2, we're going to continue our Muppet series with 1981's The Great Muppet Caper, a.k.a. Charles Grodin is deeply in love with Miss Piggy.
If that doesn't sell you,
I'm already
What
seeing
will?
how hard
He's
it
got
is to
swine
do
flu.
puppets on like the way they did with the monitors. They would always be watching a monitor so they could
Mhm.
actually like see what their performance looks like, but you have to go the opposite direction. And I'm already realizing I would need a lot of practice before I got there.
you could put on a quick puppet show for our YouTube viewers.
I
Just
this
like,
is this
you
is
know, get down
this
here.
is me learning. I thought that this one was going to talk, but actually this one talked. See, it's very confusing. Oh. Phenomena.
This is This is
Great
great. This is
podcasting.
great. Yeah, this is great audio.
It'll be fun.
The audio listeners are in their car doing their workouts. You know, like this.
My
is great.
cat is in the dresser
this
drawer.
is a really
I
good
see that,
technique
yeah.
to like mimic someone.
Henry.
Just do puppet hands.
All right. Well, Seth, we're going to start it with you. Why don't you
All right,
talk
well.
about puppets to kick us
Oh,
off with the storyteller?
Okay. Yeah, I just figure since we're doing the Muppet week, Jim Henson is one of my favorite people who ever lived. And I've always been a big fan of all of his work, even the shitty stuff. And it winds. There's a series that is kind of underseen. Aired on NBC in 1987 called The Storyteller, starring John Hurt, which you might know from various things. He's the British man with the voice, one of the many British men with the voice, and it's him and a puppet dog, and in kind of like a castle or something, and they tell you stories, as you might have imagined.
Mhm.
But the style of the way they show it, it's like European folklore and things like that, and the style is very much in the key of Dark Crystal more than say what we're going to talk about, which is the Muppet Caper, which if you don't know about the Dark Crystal or Labyrinth, Jim Henson has this other side which Storyteller falls into, which is this sort of darker, more realistic side, which sort of sprang out of Yoda, basically the beginning of those more realistic, like stranger, more for like these ideas of more adult storytelling when it comes to puppets, which is kind of a silly idea to contemplate, but that's how Jim Henson was. He was always exploring silly ideas to contemplate and bringing them to like absurd, epic levels of fruition. And I think he does it with the Storyteller, which I think there's not a ton of episodes, but there's a season that came out, and they are like really amazing in the 80s, and each one has its own like creatures in it, and they're basically already like kicking the shit out of some of the stuff you'll even see like Guillermo del Toro, like it's like still trying to keep up with some of the things he's doing with like the way the creatures look in this. And again, similar to the Dark Crystal and Labyrinth and all that. Like one of my favorite ones is the first one, which is about a hedgehog guy, and he's like a big old hedgehog person. Love that one. And there's like these ones about like, of course it's like European folklore, so there's a lot more like grim fairy tale like darkness to them. So they are like kind of surprising. A lot of them, like somebody's head just tumbles off, or there's devils and things like that. It's really good stuff. I know they eventually, after his death, they did a Greek myths one, which explores obviously Greek myths, um, which I haven't seen, but it's directed by Brian Henson, his son,
Yes,
which
myth.
are pretty good.
Yes.
Yeah. And they are talking, and I guess it's still happening, about bringing it back with Neil Gaiman as the titular storyteller telling you the story. Another British guy with a voice. So I think that would work pretty good. But yeah, gotta put the plug in there. And
Do you
yeah.
like the dark side Henson? You know, we're watching light side Henson, but I feel like
Yeah.
Dark Crystal, Labyrinth, this kind of stuff is more dark side Henson.
Oh yeah, Labyrinth is a little more hokey but fun. But Dark Crystal, I think, is like it's one of my favorite movies. It's just like astounding achievement of like everything you are seeing on the screen is artificial. Like everything was handmade by a person. And it all looks so like wild and convincing, and you have no idea like how big anything actually is. Like, what is this sound stage? And just so much craftsmanship in that. And again, like I love anything that blurs that line where that we don't get very often, is like this sort of like, is it for kids? Is it not for kids? Like, what is going on here? And it's definitely Jim like shooting his shot, trying to make something big and bold, rather than just making another Muppet movie, which, you know, he's accused plenty of times as being like kind of like a Walt Disney who's just trying to cash in or something on big success.
Nah.
But I think, which he did get beat down after lack of success with his more epic endeavors like that, but I'm glad he did some of it.
Andrew, as y'all explored through the Muppets, have you watched Labyrinth or Dark Crystal or any of these other Jim Henson things?
I've just watched Labyrinth, which I like enough, but not enough to make me want to watch Dark Crystal. But your pitch is selling me. So.
I'm trying, yeah. Andrew.
Well, I'll get into it in part 2, but I guess he was wanting to make Dark Crystal before this one, but they kind of were like, yeah, you need to make a Muppet movie before you go off into the Dark Crystal world.
Yeah, whatever the hell it was. And then I was also going to talk about David Armsby's Dinosaur series. It's on YouTube. You can watch, I think it's 6 parts. Each one is like under 10 minutes long. And they are sort of these, they almost look rotoscopy. It's like definitely stylized, but each one is just like these silent dinosaur stories. Each one following a different kind of dinosaur and a different kind of like part of the world, it seems. And it kind of differentiates itself from some sort of like documentary-esque kind of dinosaur thing. Like it reminds me of like those Walking with Dinosaurs that they did like forever ago on like Discovery Channel or something.
Oh, this is a recent thing.
It is 2022.
Oh shit!
A lot of them. I think they've been coming out as things went. Yeah, I know.
I thought this was like from the 60s.
I know. I always talk about stuff that didn't come out this year, but it did come out last year now.
Oh, this looks cool.
It's really good. And the style is really interesting. I'm having a hard time like really explaining what it looks like, but it is like really elevates it and gives it sort of an expressionistic quality, as much as it is aiming for scientific realism. Like there's definitely more updated, like T-Rex has feathers in one of the episodes. There's a lot of the feathered dinosaurs and more updated evolution ideas. But they're also just like really touching, some of them, and they're really intense, like emotionally, for being 5-minute shorts. Another thing I've always been a fan of is dinosaurs in cinema, and it feels like one of the first things in a long time that really feels like it's, you know, in conversation with O'Brien or Harryhausen, as far as like making those animals that we will probably, you know, unless Jurassic Park happens, never see. making them visible to us on screen, and they're really great. I think you should go check them out.
Are they like standalone things? Are they like trying to teach you about the different types of dinosaurs? What's
Again, it's not very educational. Like
Okay.
some of them are like a triceratop lays down and he has a dream about like the life he could have or something. Like some of them are almost like existential or something. There's a lot of like, just mom protecting babies from being eaten and stuff like that. But yeah, there's no, each one it seems like it's in probably a different Jurassic era or something, and dealing with different animals.
I just looked. I guess if you go search Dinoasuria on YouTube, I kind of want to watch them. They're cool.
Oh yeah, do it. Yeah.
All right, Dinoasuria. Andrew, I'm tossing it over to you. You saw the. There's 2 donkey movies of the year, but this seems to be the front runner for donkey movie of the year.
This is the donkey movie of the year.
Okay.
Now, the other donkey movie of the year, Banshees of Inisherin, has a very cute donkey.
Quality donkey.
I don't want to talk about that.
Yeah. That donkey is, truly, yeah.
Fabulous ass.
Great friend of Colin Farrell, loves to be indoors. This donkey that I'm going to talk about has a very different experience. The movie that I watched this weekend was EO by a Polish filmmaker. One could say that. The director is Jerzy Skolimowski. He is Polish. I have not seen anything else by him, but looking into his filmography, it actually is pretty deep. He goes all the way back to the 60s. And the stuff I'm seeing looks like he was making silent shorts just kind of as a throwback or an avant-garde experiment or something. And his filmography has been all over the place since then. But this is how he came on my radar. I know this movie's been making buzz in the festival circuit. I wasn't really sure what to expect. And it certainly wasn't what I got. Interesting, cool movie. Or maybe I should take that back and say that I did know what to expect, which is I was kind of assuming this was going to be an Alhazard Balthazar riff. And I have kind of a bad history with that movie where I watched it way before I was, at the right stage in my cinephilia to actually get on Robert Bresson's wavelength. And I was just like traumatized by boredom in Alhazard Balthazar. And I've not gone back and watched it since. So I was a little worried this would be that. But it's very much not. If Bresson's movie is like extremely minimalist, this is like the maximalist opposite of that. We are following the life of a donkey. We are seeing through that donkey's eyes, more or less. He is our POV character. And this donkey just kind of bounces around from owner to owner and situation to situation. And one thing to know about donkeys, at least from what I'm learning in this movie, is they're very quiet and slow and don't like emote a lot. So in order to get inside the subjective emotional headspace of this donkey, Skolimowski fills the space with like a lot of cinematic technique and a lot of music. The opening of the movie is EO in a circus. He's a circus animal. And we are like seeing the adoring crowd and hearing this like really bombastic music. And there's like strobing red lights. Though the music that we're hearing is not diegetic music. It's like this instrumental, like droney synth music that has been written for the movie. And one thing that I was really impressed and surprised by was just how much of the movie is driven by just really, really gorgeous instrumental music. It almost feels like a musical with no like sung lyrics in it. We're just kind of getting the donkey's emotional headspace as communicated through. music. And it is interesting to live the life of a donkey for a little while. Like at one point he goes to a farm that is owned by somebody who has like a show horse, and you get like this donkey's impression of this horse in a way that like a teen high school movie might portray like a nerdy male character seeing like the most beautiful girl in school for the first time. Like this horse is presented as like the most glamorous thing to ever exist. And it gets its own like slow-mo instrumental musical sequence. And so the movie is kind of on that wavelength. And if that sounds boring to you, I don't really know what to say other than I can assure you that it is not. Like I was kind of expecting to be bored during this movie, but I never was. It's very thrilling. It's very emotionally involving. It continues being interesting plot wise. Like EO is kind of constantly on to the next thing, like running away from owners or, getting apprehended whenever, somebody has been mistreating him or whatever. I will say if people are concerned about, seeing sad things happen to animals in movies, this is definitely a movie in which sad things happen to animals. But the director does spare us the worst of that. There's a moment where EO gets shot by some hunters, I believe. And when that happens, it then cuts to a little like, oh man, it's almost like a drone robot or something with little arms and legs crawling around in the forest. And I don't know if that is like, to what extent we're supposed to think that is just a representation of EO, like we're kind of being spared the gory reality of what his experience actually is, or if this drone robot is in and of itself like its own character. But there's also a very merciful cut when EO does die at the end of the movie. So spoiler alert, the donkey dies in the donkey movie. But you don't have to experience that with the donkey. So I thought that was a kindness on the director's part for me not to have to live through that. But
Andrew,
it is a good movie. What can I say? It was very interesting. Have I sold it or have I?
It was.
You?
Lost all its mystery now.
Wow. I mean, they can't resist that kind of thing.
It's about the donkey journey you had along the way.
It's Chekhov's donkey.
Of life. Yeah.
All right.
Cute animal. Gotta fucking die.
So and then they open up the donkey and it begins our next movie.
Yeah, and then you start watching The Autopsy by David Pryor. Which I cannot recommend enough.
Great transition.
This movie rules. If you're unfamiliar with David Pryor, it is time to get familiar, people. Different spelling of Pryor.
Actually. Prior to that.
There you go. That's it. If you are unfamiliar with this guy, he is the guy who made The Empty Man. I sometimes refer to him as Mr. Empty Man. And if you have not watched The Empty Man, wake up, sheeple. You need to watch The Empty Man. It is time to become empty. That is a movie that did not really get the audience that it deserved because of the awful fumbling of its release. It was the very last movie put out with the Fox label, and kind of the distribution got botched because of the Fox Disney merger. And I think it also played very briefly in theaters during like the height of COVID and nobody saw it. But that movie is fantastic. One of the best horror movies of the last several years. And I think a lot of folks thought that was kind of a fluke, The Empty Man. Like it just seems like such a singular one-off thing, but The Autopsy, David Pryor's follow-up to it, I think proves that he is should be a major name, a major figure in like the horror film scene right now. This came out as part of Guillermo del Toro's Cabinet of Curiosities, I think is what it's called. The Netflix, people are calling it a series or a TV show, but
I think it's an anthology thing.
It's Del Toro doing Alfred Hitchcock Presents, basically. He's coming out at the beginning of every episode, introducing the filmmaker, introducing the film, and doing a little like cryptic, jokey bit. But really what it is Del Toro kind of using his clout as a way of spotlighting some pretty unappreciated filmmakers in his whole scene. So I know there's one by Panos Cosmatos, who made Mandy. There's one by Catherine Hardwicke. There's one by Jennifer Kent. And there are others that I'm not thinking of right now. I have not seen all of those. I've heard that they're kind of hit or miss, but I did need to watch the one by Mr. Empty Man. So the Autopsy, I watched, and it is a fantastic movie. This is pretty much a two-hander. There's more or less just two actors in this movie. Glenn Turman, who I did not recognize his name, but he's been in a lot of stuff. He was in Gremlins. He was in Deep Cover. He was in Super 8. And then the other actor is F. Murray Abraham, who I'm sure more people will be familiar with from like Amadeus, etc. But F. Murray Abraham is a coroner, does autopsies, and he's friends with Glenn Turman's like sheriff character. And the plot is that in this like Appalachian coal mining town where the movie takes place, they have found this very strange body that like has no blood in it, and has been mangled and seemingly eaten in various ways, and they want to find out how this body came to die. So F. Murray Abraham's character is brought in. He does an autopsy on the body. It turns out there are a lot of other bodies that were kind of found around the same area, and he does autopsies on all of them. And it's a bit of a fun mystery for a while as he's like hunting for clues and gathering evidence. He's kind of learning a little bit more about the phenomenon that's afflicting this town with each new body he examines. And I am a little squeamish about like medical body horror stuff. Like I get squeamish about people getting shots in movies because they always want to give you the close up on the vein when that happens. And so some of the handling of organs and stuff was a little hard for me because it's very convincingly done. But it's not, it doesn't feel like gratuitous or violent. It is a medical professional doing their job more or less. And I don't want to say too much about where the movie ends up going. But it kind of becomes a sort of Lovecraftian cosmic horror thing that is really easy to do badly. And this does it fantastically. That was another big strength of The Empty Man. It found ways to put the ideas that are associated with Lovecraft on screen in a way that like the ideas kind of resist being put on screen because they're so indescribable by definition. But David Pryor, I think, has really keyed into like the philosophy underpinning Lovecraft's work, and he finds ways to visualize it in ways that other filmmakers haven't. Like there's a scene near the end of this where the camera goes like inside somebody's like body and nervous system in a way that I've not quite seen before. And like we have a very interesting like Lovecraftian monster who actually talks to the main character. And that is strange to be able to actually speak to some sort of eldritch being. Like this movie is scary both in its execution, its visuals, its tension, its atmosphere, but also in its ideas. Like I was very unsettled. Like just hearing this monster speak to me watching this movie. So, highest recommendation for me, absolutely fantastic. David Pryor, he's a real one. I've been listening to interviews with him, and he's just an incredibly smart dude. Got his start in the film industry by helping put together a special edition DVD set of Alien. He's obsessed with that movie. And then like got tapped to do like behind the scenes documentaries for like a bunch of David Fincher movies, and what else? Inside Llewyn Davis, Master and Commander, all The Fly, all sorts of stuff. So like he's like learned from a lot of the greats behind the scenes before he actually got to go out in the world and make his own stuff. And I think that shows in like the level of craft and expertise he's able to bring to the form. So yeah, I'm Pryor pilled. Everyone else should be too, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, I smashed the watch list button. So
oh yeah,
you said all my sizzle words.
Your sizzle words?
Yeah, like when you're if you work for Pizza Hut for any length of time, you have to say various like, and it's fresh ingredients, it's like fresh, crisp, things like that. For me, it's Lovecraftian and
colonoscopies and
anything that points to a Shoggoth.
Eldritch.
Mm-hmm.
That too.
It's a good one.
Next week on Cinematary, we reveal our sizzle words.
Shoggoth. Nyarlathotep.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and then we will be back getting to the bottom of who's stealing these jewels with the Great Muppet Caper after this.
That sounds great.
Cool.
I'll be there.
I'm here.
I'm in for the long
haul.
I'm
not going anywhere.
Yeah.
All right.
We could jump right in if you guys want to.
Okay.
Up to y'all.
We're just trying to get Seth out by 9:15.
Okay, that's a good goal.
Squeeze me out.
Let me see. I think I got everything. I'm really jealous. I guess yesterday in Los Angeles, the Chinese theater, they had a screen of RRR with the 2 stars and the director.
Oh wow!
And it seemed like it was cool.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, I wish I could see that movie in a theater.
Me too.
That'd be nice.
That would be a, and that like the theater was like packed out. I'm like, that sounds like a hell of a time.
Yeah, that'd be a great movie to see with a crowd.
That makes me feel better that you guys also don't have screenings of it.
No, yeah, I think that's reserved for the big places.
You got to be paying some serious rent to see RRR.
Andrew, did you see David Ehrlich's top 25 video?
Oh no, I didn't know it was out.
It dropped yesterday. I was very disappointed when it started, and the first movie of the 25 was Fableman. So I was like, well, shit.
25?
Yeah, I was like, well, it's no bueno.
No.
A lot of tar in it, if that surprises you.
That does not surprise me.
Like they just put tar for like 5 of them?
Well, he kept like referencing back to scenes from Tar, so I was like, yeah, we get it. You really like this movie.
What was his number 1?
She's her favorite right now.
She's whose favorite?
Twitter's. Just all over my Twitter. Tar this, that.
Oh.
Have you seen it, Grace?
No.
Wow.
Whoa!
Almost had to cancel you.
No.
I didn't see Tar.
Almost had to cancel Grace. Take her out.
Wow.
No, his number 1 was After Sun.
That move, that
I need to see that.
It's on Mubi, I guess, right now. So I was gonna watch it maybe tomorrow or Thursday.
Watch a movie?
Want to watch a movie
so
movie
cute.
on Mubi?
Yeah,
Mubby.
Mubi and Tubi. That's so cute. Like I love those. Let's watch the
It's
Tubi.
Tubby.
It's adorable.
But
Tubby?
no, I'm hoping to watch it. I've heard some people who really liked it, and then I have like one person I know who's like, this movie. I was like,
Really? I've
Yeah.
not seen anybody up in arms about After Sun.
they were like, fuck this movie. I was like, damn. Okay.
Cool guy.
All right. All right. Here we go. We don't have to cancel Grace.
It happened between parts. She's fine.
I didn't do anything.
Only
Be
the
back.
YouTube viewers.
The YouTube viewers can cancel Grace.
She's fine. She did what she needed to
No.
do. She did therapy.
I'll never come back from that if it's on YouTube. I'll never come back.
Nah, you're good. All right, here we go. Let's talk some Muppets.
Let's do it.
In 3, 2, 1. And we are back with part 2 of episode 348 of Cinematary. In this part, we're going to continue our Muppet series with 1981's The Great Muppet Caper, directed by Jim Henson, from a script by Tom Patchett, Jay Tars, Jerry Jewell, and Jack Rose. The film stars Kermit the Frog, Fozzie Bear, Miss Piggy, The Great Gonzo, Charles Grodin, and Diana Rigg. In the second live-action Muppets film, intrepid journalists Kermit, Fozzie, and Gonzo snag an assignment reporting on a British jewel
Twin brother.
Yeah, you
journalist.
forgot
Identical twin brother.
They're twins.
journalist.
Identical twin brothers, Kermit and Fozzie. Arriving in England, the trio settles in at the Rochus Happiness Hotel and seeks out socialite Lady Holiday, the victim of the theft. Soon, Miss Piggy appears, intending to work for Lady Holiday, but she ends up being framed by the aristocrat's scheming brother, Nicky. Kermit and company work to clear Piggy's name. The Great Muppet Caper marked the first feature film directorial debut for Muppet creator and performer Jim Henson. As the Muppets show was winding down production for good, Jim Henson was making plans to break off into new creative areas and eventually settled on 2 ambitious projects. One was a new television series that eventually became Fraggle Rock. The other, a puppet-based fantasy film titled The Dark Crystal that he planned to direct. Even in the early stages, it was becoming clear that The Dark Crystal was going to be a complicated and expensive endeavor that'd be even riskier since Henson had never directed a feature before.
Did you know he initially wanted to do it with subtitles and in some made-up language?
Wow.
They talked him down.
Wish he would have gotten to live his dreams.
At the same time, people were still clamoring for more of the Muppets. We want more Muppets. With that, a deal was struck. If Henson agreed to direct a new Muppet movie first, he'd then be allowed to direct The Dark Crystal. Frank Oz, in a 1981 interview talking about the water ballet sequence with Miss Piggy, said, quote, "The water ballet scene with Miss Piggy was really wonderful. I was under the water for a week. I had 3 days of scuba training, and then down I went. Having them swim for the first time really was exciting. It's amazing, though. You work and work on the most difficult things, and people say, that's nice. Then something easy will occur, and it'll be all anyone talks about. In the first movie, it was Kermit riding a bike. It was very easy to do that. It was just a simple marionette with strings. In the same film, there was that whole complicated sequence with Gonzo and the balloon crashing into the sign and landing in the car. It took forever to film that, and all they talk about was the bike. That's why we have a whole bicycle parade in this film."
Amazing.
The New York Times in 1981 said, "Here is a thoroughly genial movie, a combination of A.A. Milne, Busby Berkeley, and a small bit of Blake Edwards, in which Kermit, Miss Piggy, Fozzie Bear, and the other Jim Henson, Frank Oz puppets become involved with Diana Rigg, Charles Grodin, and a number of guest stars in a not quite all singing, all dancing romantic melodrama about jewel thievery in the London of haute couture. Great townhouses and hotels where the bellboys are uniformed mice." In 1981, Roger Ebert said, "The Muppets are a wonderful creation, but they lose their special quality in the Great Muppet Caper. They behave like clones of other popular kiddie superstars, like the basic cartoon heroes they once seemed destined to replace. The lack of a cutting edge
Valley
hurts
of the
this
Dolls
movie.
Part 2.
It's too nice, too routine, too predictable, and too safe."
Did you like the first one? What?
He did like the first one, yeah.
That is safe and predictable of him.
On that note, let's talk a little bit about the Great Muppet Caper. Andrew is one of the creators of the series. I'll let you go first.
The Great Muppet Caper is really the reason we're having this series, because they had a theatrical redistribution of it for an anniversary. I don't remember if it was last or it was 2021 or 2020. It must have been 2021. And I went to see it just because I needed something to do that day. And like, I had actually never seen a full Muppet movie from beginning to end. And I saw that it was directed by Jim Henson. And I was like, you know what? Let's give that a shot. Let's roll the dice on the Great Muppet Caper in theaters now. And I was just bowled over by it. I thought it was hysterical from the word go. That opening credits sequence where like Gonzo and Kermit and Fozzie are talking about like how long the credits are and how no one reads credits except for the family members of the people involved is just absolutely hysterical to me. And I think I was not aware of just how meta the Muppets as an entity are. That is now something that's very apparent to me as somebody who's watched all the movies and watched some of the Muppet Show, that's one of the main things they do is like fourth wall breaking and acknowledgement, like what you're seeing is this like production that these supposed characters have put on for you. But I thought that, or I still think that this is maybe the pinnacle of that ethos among the Muppets and Jim Henson. Like, if the Muppet movie is kind of this almost, a straightforward biopic of like, here's how the Muppets came to be, here's their relationships to each other, here's how they finally got to make it to Hollywood. This is the movie they make once they're in Hollywood, right?
This is how they really are.
Well, no, it is not how they really are. It's them
respect.
Kind of playing around with genre and tropes and ridiculous roles. I think that one of the things that's really fun about watching the continued adventures of the Muppets is just kind of seeing the various slots that they put all the characters in. Like when in Muppet Treasure Island, which you'll talk about next week, when they're talking about this really intimidating captain of a ship who's about to show up and like whip everybody into shape, and it's Kermit the Frog. Like, it's just such a good reveal. And one of the brilliant ways in which they play with that in this movie is like casting Kermit and Fozzie as identical twin reporters.
Yes. And people keep getting them mixed up.
Yes.
It's he's the one with the hat.
I love that Gonzo is also the photographer.
Fozzie's the one with the hat.
Around them. Fozzie's the one with the hat.
No, Kermit is, right?
Yeah.
No, Fozzie's the one with the hat.
Fozzie has a hat.
No, Fozzie.
Wait, no, that's Kermit.
I love when they're looking in the mirror together and Fozzie said, "Which one is me?" They're good.
You're the one on the right.
But one thing that I appreciate more about this movie now that I didn't appreciate about it when I saw it is just how effortlessly they weave in all the little in-jokes of the Muppets that don't even register the first time you're watching it. But like when they all crash to the ground in the opening sequence and like Fozzie's like chasing down a bunch of chickens like that. When I first saw it, I thought, this is just a very chaotic scene. A lot of things are happening. There's a lot of Muppets around, but no, like Fozzie's a freak for chickens. Like he's just sexually attracted to chickens.
Gonzo.
Oh, Gonzo. Sorry.
See, you're getting them mixed up too.
So there's just
the
so many like layers of delightfulness to this movie. I think it's the funniest of the Muppet movies. I think it's the most like technically accomplished of the Muppet movies. I think that probably has something to do with the fact that it's the only one that Henson himself directed. But yeah, I'm an enormous fan of this one. So
yeah,
that's all I'll say for now, I guess.
Seth, this is one of your favorites overall. So what about the Great Muppet Caper calls to you?
I mean, there's certainly a nostalgia with this one, but I was pleasantly surprised when I watched it like 6 or 7 years ago for the first time, like as an adult. And it like, holy shit, it was like a whole new movie to me. And it's always nice when something actually holds up and it's not just watery-eyed remembering when or something. There's something really I don't know, there's something that I really do personally jive with, and I think a lot of people do, and it's really on display here, and it's what the Muppets do best, which, like Andrew touched on, is the meta the meta aspect of the Muppets, which now is like everybody loves, everybody does all the time and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I still think there's a particular way that the Muppets do it that I prefer, and it like falls into my own like humor and the way I feel like I almost the way it reminds me of the way I wind up seeing the world a lot of the time, which is this sort of like there's a difference between like snarky like pointing out something and just like making it like taking the piss and like just like, isn't it stupid we're in is it stupid that we're in a movie and it's stupid that we're puppets, and like isn't it this scene a
See,
little
the Muppets
silly?
think it's super cool that they're in a movie is the difference.
Yeah. Well, or they like pass through that. They like get that's like not that's step number one is acceptance that this is silly. This is we are in a movie and we are singing a song, but let's go forth and do it with joy and with a spring in our step and everything. And I don't know, I just think that is so much funnier and sweeter and more real than just taking the piss and just like being meta for meta's sake or something like that, which is just so prevalent, I think, and is the easier way of doing it. This is the harder way of doing it. It not coming across as just like, I don't know, like worthless or something.
What do you make of the scene where Kermit is like giving Miss Piggy acting notes?
I think it's really powerful and weird because what we're seeing there is a further breaking down of the fourth wall, where like there is a Kermit and Miss Piggy, and you see like a little window into like the what they really are or something. Like they're like actors in this movie, but like being in a very serious way. Like they're like that. It's funny that they are like breaking the fourth wall in that moment, but it still is like this sort of like, honey, we got to get through this. This is like serious. It's like I don't know. Again, it's like still it's committing to the bit in a way that I just really appreciate. And again, is not just like trying to make you laugh or trying to get a reaction out of you. You can tell there's like genuine care going on with this thing, which it would be very easy. And again, like that is the danger. And I think Jim Henson fell into it a few times of being just like I don't know, like I can just kind of jump into this thing, and as long as I like throw Kermit and Miss Piggy in front of a bunch of kids, I'm gonna make like millions of dollars or something. It's amazing to see that level of care and those levels of humor that you can see here, and the technical achievements, which are these. I love how they adore talking about how easy the bike thing is. I've seen so many interviews with them where they just like, oh, like everybody thinks that was hard. It wasn't that hard. It wasn't hard to do. Making a bunch of them, a whole fleet of them, making them going in circles, not hard at all. Not a big deal. I don't know why they like really they love doing that. We'll do it. Yeah, it's like the cool guy. He's like saying like, "Oh yeah, I heard of that before you."
Grace, what did you make of the Great Muppet Caper?
The okay Muppet Caper.
Confusing. But we can get through this.
Not really. No, I don't mean that. I'm starting to see it through, your eye. No, I don't hate Muppets. I don't hate. If anything, I am like kindred with Miss Piggy. Like she and we can. But I did not grow up watching the Muppets. I have no childhood attachment to them. They unfortunately, for me, did not inspire wonder, and they did not make magic for me. And maybe that's something that's missing in my life. Maybe if I could do it all over again. So I'm watching these for the first time. I watched the first Muppet movie, and I loved that. I thought that was magical. Because I think that the magic is like all of these fabulous little characters coming together, and this tiny little world, because they're so fun, they're so funny, and like they're real. Like I'm willing to accept that. I know that some people aren't. I know personally some people that they hate the bit that we are all in on, is that the Muppets are real. Like these are real people. They do inside the actor's studio and talk shows and all of that. Like they're real and they're fun. That this one just sort of fell flat for me, because like I was excited for like a mystery, like not a murder mystery, you wouldn't get that, but like a whodunit is always like so fun and corny and campy, and I was excited for that. And it just felt like we sort of, my cat is trying to get involved in this stream, and then it felt like we sort of like lost that like mystery story and like ran with like the romance with Piggy and Kermit, which I love, always, and then it's like, oh, but back to that, gotta pick that back up, and then resolve it. So that was just my biggest like, I felt like it got a little sidetracked for a second. But
this is maybe the Muppet movie that feels like it has the most disposable plot. Like the plot is just kind of an excuse for us to get from bit to bit.
It has transcended.
Yeah,
plot.
and like,
it understands that plot is silly.
But and like I loved talk more about like that beautiful like Esther Williams like underwater dance. Like that was beautiful, and that was fun to watch, and I loved seeing Piggy do that. She looked like a mermaid. She looked amazing. She is gorgeous. She's an icon. She's a legend. She is the moment. She's perfect. And I loved seeing that, but it didn't do anything other than like, look what we can do with this puppet, which is cool.
You didn't think it was you didn't think it was hysterical to see the image of like Piggy at the top of the water fountain and like insert shots of Kermit and Charles Grodin both singing passionately to her?
I thought it was funny. I thought it was cute. I was like, oh, ha.
That is, for me, one of the funniest scenes I've ever seen. And I'm going to keep on. I'm not going to make this an argument. This is just going to happen when you're that's very valid that you think it's okay, and it's very valid that I will just continue to gush about it. I'm not trying to put anything down at all.
Well, listen, we've been talking for I'm gonna look. We've been talking for 17 minutes now. And we've only mentioned Charles Grodin once, so I'm going to go ahead and fix that problem.
Charles Grodin.
Charles Grodin is unequivocally the best part of this movie.
It is so funny. And I can't believe I didn't mention it when I was talking about it.
Charles Grodin, who is like famous for his like straight man roles in like The Heartbreak Kid, in Real Life, in Ishtar, in Midnight Run. Is like manic as hell in this thing. Like the first time you meet him, he's like snapping his fingers, just like walking in.
He's her Lady Holiday's idiot brother.
Like
he's so silly.
His like office door says "worthless parasite." I think
no, irresponsible
parasite.
Like
that's how he's referred to by.
Like he has this energy like he's not in the same movie as everybody else, like he's just in his own, like, because like Diana Rigg is like putting this like performance together, like she's somebody like she's engaged in the character, and Charles Grodin is just there doing whatever the hell he wants. Where my favorite one of my favorite parts of him is when Piggy comes to the little like ball gala thing that they're at. And he like initially like comes toward her and is like trying to woo her, and she's like dancing, and there's like this there's all these other men who are like dancing around her, and she's like at the center. And in the back, you could still see Charles Grodin just like staring at her, trying to like make his way toward her. Just like manic, hilarious energy. Like the funniest I laughed at him was when he knew he had to set her up to like take the fall for the heist, and he's like struggling with it, and then it happens, and he just like completely hams it up, and it's just like, oh no, Miss Piggy, oh my god,
oh my god, yes.
like just incredible, like god tier performance.
I don't know why I love her, I just do.
But it's just
like he's trying to do like an Oscar performance or something. He's mimicking some kind of big performance he would give in a real romantic lead role.
He's the only person who like matches the energy of the Muppets in a movie, because he like has the same genuine energy that they have. Everybody else is kind of like doing a bit or like there for a scene, and Charles Grodin, he's like committed. Like he showed up and he was like, I'm gonna give you my 100% for this thing, and I love him for it. Honestly,
he has
the
his
best
own
part
hand
of this movie.
up to control himself. Like that's
you think that's how it worked? I believe it. He was method acting.
Like he did it. He just like to puppet himself, and he does the little
Though I have to say, this time around, I really enjoyed the sequence with John Cleese.
I was about to transition.
That is
also one of the funniest things in the movie. With just John Cleese sitting across from his wife in this beautiful house, and they are just the most boring British couple of all time, and the wife is just talking about the weather was simply dreadful yesterday.
What does he say? Like he's gonna go out to the store to get olives and something?
Oh well, and she asks if he's bored, and he says like, "Oh, bored? That's a good one. If I was bored, I would go out and buy some olives or something
or
like
cheese,
that. Cheese or something." And she's like, "I suppose you would, yes." And then they go back to silence, all while Miss Piggy is like traversing the house and trying to act like she lives there because she told Kermit that she's Lady Holiday.
Well, before then, she's like climbing up the house, and he's like, "Dear, I do believe that there's a pig outside climbing our house."
Right after he said the pigs were dead, the pets are gone.
Yeah, it's just that's also like I don't think it clocked for me the first time watching that, but John Cleese very solid cameo in that one.
I like the movie as a very subtle send up of like British stuffiness. The John Cleese scene being maybe the best example of has these intruders in his house, and he asks them what he can do for them, and they ask for a restaurant recommendation.
I don't mean to be rude.
Or if they ask me for a restaurant. Well, that's actually a dining club. It's not a supper club. It's not a restaurant.
He refers to Miss Piggy as a chap.
Yes. A chap and a lizard in the closet.
A chap and a lizard. That's right.
It's so
a chap, a pork chap.
I also
pork chap. Pork chap.
Pork chap. He could have said it.
They have the guy who, whenever they fall out of the plane and they land in the lake, the British guy they talked to was like, I was reading is somebody who like did the intros on British Airways for like 40 years.
He had to be somebody.
Yeah, so he would like the guy, if you were flying British Airways and were going to England, like he'd be like, "Hello, welcome to England."
That's where I know him.
Okay. And so like that's why when they're like, "Where should we stay?" and he's like naming off stuff, like that was his whole thing, is like he would be on the British Airways flight and would be like, "If you would like to go stroll in the park, there's Hyde Park and other parks around London," shit like that. And so that's also a nice little bit.
They go over the English River.
They do. They go over the English River.
Yeah.
What do we make? While we're just talking about cameos, what do we think of Peter Falk in this movie?
A+.
Love it. Love him. That's my man.
I don't even remember.
That's who that my is.
Man. Peter
Columbo.
He's Columbo. He goes over and tries to sell him a watch. He gives Kermit terrible advice and then tries to sell him a watch.
Yeah, he does a whole bit about how he's
not go into the dry cleaning business. That's what this movie taught me.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't do it. because there's always
I know
someone
your story.
down the
I've heard it 1,000 times. And he tells him this story. And it's like, you are wrong. You are wrong about everything.
I like that also they just had Peter Falk. Like the rest of the cameos are kind of like British actors and people well known from England, and then they just throw Peter Falk, who's deeply American, in there.
What's he doing? Selling watches?
It's a mystery.
Yeah,
He's a
it is
detective.
a mystery.
I didn't complain. It was great. I was like, Peter Falk shows up. Hell yeah, let's rock and roll.
I did not complain. I was like, hey. I was like, there he is.
I think the cameos, like we talked a little bit about some of the people that you see in the Muppet movie, which I think is a little bit more recognizable. It's dated a little bit just because I think a lot of people probably watching today are not catching every one of the characters from the late 70s who are showing up in the movie. But this one I think is outside of like John Cleese. It's a little bit tougher just because they are these kind of obscure British faces. I don't know, how does everybody feel just overall about the cameos compared to the Muppet movie?
I think that the joke is almost never just the existence of the cameo.
Yeah.
It's always the jokes that the actor doing the cameo is delivering are funny enough to stand on their own. Like, I mean, I know this is a different movie, but a good example of that in the Muppets canon is the Steve Martin bit in the Muppet movie. Like, even if you don't know who Steve Martin is, that scene is hilarious.
Yes,
that's true.
Just like it doesn't matter if you know who Charles Grodin or John Cleese are. It's like It's just a very, very funny scene and someone really doing a great job. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. The mystery is this sort of thing that is I could see where that is kind of they maybe go too far in that meta way that they do basically are just constantly spoiling the plot and all the strings that are holding the plot together and cutting them all.
Yeah, you solve the mystery.
Yes.
Like that,
Well, it's kind of a mystery on the part of Kermit and Fozzie.
It's a mystery how this movie got made.
Wow.
I didn't mean that.
But what I was going to say is that like more than mystery we get is heist movie.
Yes.
It's way more of a heist movie than it is a mystery.
And, more in Pink Panther or something, because Pink Panther isn't like you're not really trying to figure out much of a thing. It's trying to stop the villain.
And see the thing that this one has, again reaffirming that just saves everything, is that Charles Grodin is giving 150% of effort in this movie.
Too much.
Like just like at the even the part where they're naming off the stuff that they're gonna bring to the heist, where it's like fighting bits because Charles Grodin also is doing a bit.
Yes,
and then they're doing their bit as well. It's just
I brought paper towels.
That was very
funny.
While we're talking about Charles Grodin planning his heist, we should note that he has his trio of foxy ladies who are going to help him do this heist.
Also great. Yeah.
And I don't know if their names ever get mentioned in the movie, but in the credits they are credited as Marla, Carla, and Darla, which I think is very funny.
Well, he's telling Miss Piggy that he wants to be with her because he's tired of these slim, slender women who are just fawning over him
with their beautiful legs. Oh, they're beautiful. Yeah,
he knows what he wants.
Yeah.
It cannot be overstated that a significant plot point in this movie is Charles Grodin wants to fuck Miss Piggy. That is one of the main through lines.
And it's cool. It's
deeply in love.
It works.
Deeply in love.
I support it.
He's saying what we're all thinking, right?
Even at the end, he's just like, "I'm sorry. I wish we could have made this happen." This one is also a little bit different from the Muppet movie, because I think the Muppet movie, it's Kermit and Miss Piggy and Fozzie are kind of lead, but it also is it's trying to capture a lot of different Muppets. In this one, definitely, I think the Muppets broadly are a little bit more sidelined in this one compared to the Muppet movie, which is trying to kind of hit a lot of bases with the different characters. How did y'all feel about that?
Yeah, every Muppet movie has different Muppets that get spotlighted. Like in Christmas Carol, that's really where you get the best Rizzo performance, for example, right? And there's not really a standout here except maybe Miss Piggy.
Yeah, if anything, she's the center.
Yeah, this may be like the best Piggy movie, but it mostly like sticks with the trio of Kermit, Fozzie, and Gonzo, and it kind of relies on a lot of the human actors to fill up the rest of the space. And while I do miss like getting to see more from somebody like Rizzo or Sam the Eagle or somebody like that, I think that this movie like is pretty tightly held together as it is.
Yeah, it's just a whole different experience than like the Muppet movie, or even the show where you're kind of getting more moments with different characters who are not the kind of core folks that you see. And I'll be curious, I haven't seen Treasure Island or Wizard of Oz, which is next week, but like seeing who kind of gets spotlighted and featured, because that's also just kind of interesting. And Jesse and I talked about it a little bit last week about how, we talked a little bit about you have this actor who's puppeteering the puppet, who then is giving this performance, and like it's kind of interesting to see who gets more spotlight, who gets more time, and just kind of the nuances to a degree of the performances, because like Kermit is a little bit different of a character in this than he was in like the Muppet movie, and probably is different also in Treasure Island, where he's playing an actual character. It's just kind of, it's interesting just from the Jim Henson, Frank Oz, like that kind of puppet role, like how they add a little nuance to the performances, so it's not just him doing Kermit the Frog every time.
I love the focus of concentrating on the three and letting the other Muppets be there to really just add to the background and elevate everything. Like the Happiness Hotel crew is just, they are like technically background, but there is a lot happening in that background. That's what's so exciting. And they're always
chatter. I like when they're all yelling.
And it's a funny like push and pull sort of borderline lesson going on, where it is like this sort of like your community versus like your individual needs, where it's handled very humorously, where like your own brother, your identical twin brother, wants to go on a date with you, and he's like assuming that you would bring him.
Waka.
Once you finally like humorously, like Kermit actually does this, like, I guess I will bring my identical twin brother on my date. It turns out that the entire community of Muppets are going to go with him. So it's always this interesting push and pull of like the group versus what Kermit maybe should have and maybe wants on his own.
They do a good job at the very end, like on the actual, like, we're going to save the diamond from being stolen, to like incorporate everybody. Like you have the whole scene where they're like throwing the baseball diamond all over the place. And they kind of incorporate all the different characters there, which is nice.
They do a nice job like highlighting like who gets a chance to like shine in this moment, and they kind of shined a light on my girl Janice a couple times. She had some cute little moments like where she's tanning. She's like, we had that last week.
I love her.
And then when she like when there's the chatter, everybody goes quiet. She's like, and then if I want to go to the top of the speech, it's my body, Mom. Who are you? Like, that's hilarious.
So good.
That is hilarious when they like decide like, okay, we're gonna throw her a little moment, and then we're gonna like have this new cabbie character that's
Beauregard.
We're gonna
he's so funny.
Spotlight him.
I live there. I just don't know how to get there.
So it's like they did stick to the core. You're gonna want to make a U-turn, but like they did a fun job like highlighting some of the Muppets, giving them their moment. But I thought that Gonzo, for me, his rich interior life as a photographer, he's having this like he's got series and he's going through movements for a study on legs under like calves,
kneecaps,
like, under tables. He's got his dark room moment, this like blow up, Antonioni, like he's doing so much for me. And he's so cute and he's so well dressed. Like he is such a sharp little character. And
honestly,
so
best Muppet.
I'm glad you brought him up because I think he does such a good job as like the wild third wheel kind of character in the background. Because I think it would be very easy on paper to be like, oh, and then Gonzo does something like just totally like nuts or something. But they're still handled with care, like the things that he does. There's the baby cat. Hello.
I like when they're on the plane.
Like
yeah, kind of.
She looks like Sam Eagle. Yeah, kind of.
Oh,
you are all weirdos. Yeah.
I like on the plane when they're all sitting there in their crates and it says bear, frog, and for Gonzo it just says whatever.
Yeah. There's so many good running jokes with Gonzo. There's the fact that he's obsessed with chickens or sexually attracted to chickens. There's the fact that nobody knows what the heck he is, and that he's like such an adrenaline junkie that he basically has a death wish at all times. Like he hails a cab by jumping into traffic and then is frustrated that they didn't run over him.
Yeah. It says, Fozzie says like that was awful. And then Gonzo says, well, we're just going to have to do it again.
It's great when it works. He also gets his nose stuck in an elevator while like ogling Marla, Carla, and Darla, and then offers Fozzie like, "Do you want to stick your? It's pretty fun. You want to stick your nose in this elevator door.
It's fun up there."
Gonzo also.
What is his nose like? It's fun. He gets pleasure from that. Like, is that?
Yeah,
I think so.
Like,
yeah,
it's a little phallic.
Oh my god.
Gonzo also a character just like
nose.
living in his own movie, just like
Well, speaking of his own movie, he does kind of have his own movie. We're not doing it on the series, but if people like Gonzo, if people like me are freaks for Gonzo, they should watch Muppets from Space, which is all dedicated to Gonzo.
Gonzo for Gonzo, and I agree.
Any final thoughts? Any final lines that we can't be remiss without mentioning?
Thieves aren't breathing down your neck is a great one because Lady Holiday is like yapping about like I feel like thieves are breathing down your neck, and he like Charles Grodin literally breathes down her neck when he says it. It's so funny.
Love Chuck Grodin.
Yeah, I can't say it enough just how funny the whole split screen, like Kermit is singing about true love in one screen and Charles Grodin is singing about true love.
He's actually singing. That's his actual.
Oh yeah, voice. It's like an opera voice. How will I choose? Says Miss Piggy, and I'm like, I don't know, bitch. I don't know how you'll choose.
I'd choose Charles Grodin.
What were you gonna say, Grace?
Oh, I just thought that what is it, Diana Rigg? Like I thought that she brought like the melodrama. She was so cute and funny and like such a
that's a good point.
Hoity British lady. She was a delight because I was thinking about the way she delivered the thieves are right on my neck, like so dramatic. And then when they ask her like, Lady Holiday, will you ever hire a pig again? Well, I shall certainly think twice about it. Like that is just like such a silly little like
I love her meta moment when like Piggy asks her like why she's going on about something. She says, well, it's plot exposition. It has to go somewhere.
Yeah, it's very funny.
Yeah.
Yes. It would be so she'd be such an easy character to sideline and be like, all right, you're playing straight woman to funny Miss Piggy or something. And she still has like these like really goofy, ditzy sort of lines.
Oh yeah.
I will say, if we're just adding final things, like I mentioned at the top that this is maybe like the most technically accomplished Muppet movie. Like when I saw the parade of bikes going through the park, I was just absolutely amazed and having the like, how did they do that moment? All the like the water ballet stuff that we've already talked about is amazing. But I also think that they get a lot of mileage out of some very simple, kind of almost stupid things. Like I will never get tired of them just throwing a Muppet, like Gonzo getting thrown out into traffic, or
just a doll
getting thrown out of the plane or something. Yeah. very, very funny. And like I think the rapidity of jokes in this movie is really impressive. Like it almost plays like a Marx Brothers or a Mel Brooks movie with like just the ratio of jokes. Like even if not all of them hit for you, you're getting so many jokes per minute.
Yeah, it feels a lot like it's definitely inspired by like Bugsby Berkeley, for a lot of it. But I think also it reminds me a little bit of like a Marx Brothers movie in terms of just like, it's like there's a plot. It's kind of like any Marx Brothers movie. There's a plot. It's not really that important. It's just there to like jumpstart Groucho lines, and so that's what you're there for. There's no real like, who cares about what the plot is. You're just there for the Muppets to do silly stuff and everybody else to react.
The Muppet movie before this, Muppets Take Manhattan, is like the most plot heavy.
Is that before this?
Yeah, it's before this. I believe.
That's wacky.
And like Muppets Take Manhattan, I don't know if this is a controversial statement or not. I think it's a terrible movie. I think it is like an experiment with trying to bring like a level of like gritty social realism to the Muppets that just completely fails. I'm glad that
it's at least the least funny.
Yeah. This movie being so kind of detached from reality and just kind of following its own little flight of fancy, I think completely works.
Yeah.
That's what I can't believe. I really thought this was number 2 for such a long time, and that's why I've always compared the two. Like, and I think a lot of people do. Like, it's sort of like A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back sort of thing. And for me, I definitely lean towards Caper, but I still love the first one.
Oh, you're right. That Manhattan is 3. Manhattan comes after this.
Okay.
I was going to say in my notes, I introduced it as the second one, so now I look like an asshole.
No.
It's like, wow, they really fixed themselves. But instead they broke down a little bit after this one. But yeah, comparing the two is interesting because I don't know. Yeah, it's hard to choose them, but I do choose this one because it does feel like this is the next level of the Muppets. We get to know them like deeper, and I appreciate what happens in the first one, that it is like it's the most emotional, and I can understand why that would be someone's favorite because of that. But in some ways it almost feels like, I don't know. I don't want to say like easier, but like low-hanging fruit emotionally, like more of like reaching for like some kind of like theater big moment, making you cry and stuff like that. Where this has I don't know, there's a lot of depth here that is like real subtle underneath. Like it's happening quite often during the comedy and during the jokes, the plot, the crime, all of that stuff. It again is very much about how like we can transcend plot and transcend all this, starting from meaninglessness and going to like, okay, well, yeah, but like now we know it's a movie, but we're going to make one hell of a movie. I just love that grand gesture of it all. But I don't know, where do you guys land with it compared to the first one?
I think it's better than the first one personally, but I like the first one a lot too.
I like the first one.
I love them both. Yeah.
Charles Grodin's in this one, so
that is tough.
If Charles Grodin was in the first one, then that would also complicate things. But the first one also has
he in the third
Orson
one?
Welles.
He's not.
That was whoa. Like when he turned around that chair and I was like, whoa.
Yeah, the Orson Welles cameo is probably the best Muppets cameo, I gotta say.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that will wrap up this episode.
Wait. What we haven't, everybody's been dying to know, like, what is everybody's Muppet? We can't just talk. Have y'all done that yet? Like, we can't just talk about
like
the Muppets.
What Muppet are you?
Who's your favorite?
Yeah. We haven't done that.
Well,
Have y'all done that yet? Like
last year for Halloween, Jesse and I dressed up as, or no, not last year. The year before last for Halloween, Jesse and I dressed up as Muppets. She was Janice and I was Zoot.
very cute.
Oh,
my favorite Muppet movie letterbox review was I really wish I could smoke a joint with Janice.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
So
Probably
cute.
ripping weed.
That's why our eyes
Who's
are
your favorite
closed.
Muppet?
Mine too.
I think I'm pretty boring. I like Kermit. I don't know.
Are we going with favorite or like the Muppet you
No, like
identify
who
with?
you are.
Yeah, Seth.
Who you are.
I don't know. I'm tempted to say Gonzo for you.
Yeah, I would say Gonzo.
Okay.
I think I want to be. I strive for Kermit, but I usually wind up being Gonzo. Yes.
I think aspiring for Gonzo is a noble goal.
It's true. Maybe I should.
We're all aspiring to be Gonzo.
Be myself, a little space alien thrill seeker.
Grace, who are you? You Janice?
Well, I think her, as much as I want to be a piggy, like as much as I like see myself in her, I think I might be more of a Janice now that I've actually like seen a single Muppets movie. So
Piggy's got a lot of hang-ups, you know. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I identify with the eye patch cat that's stuck under a radiator in the Happiness Hotel in this movie.
Oh yeah.
Who is quietly the best Muppet in this movie?
I think you might be Fozzie Bear, Zach.
Oh,
waka waka. I also,
Well, who is Andrew though?
He's Zoot.
I was Zoot for Halloween. I don't know if that's the Muppet that I most identify as.
You are. I don't know. You're the Kermit of the podcast, perhaps.
I might be Kermit.
You're the Kermit.
Or like you're a little bit of a Scooter. You know.
That's an insult, I think.
You think so? I always like Scooter a lot.
You're a little bit of a Scooter.
He's
Scooter's
nice
only around because his uncle owns the theater.
Oh, right.
Yeah, he is.
Never mind.
Scooter has no real purpose.
He's a nepo baby. Breaking news: Scooter is a nepotism baby.
He's a nice, sweet boy.
Jeez. All right.
Brightly colored. I'd like to be Rizzo, to be honest, but I don't think I'm that cool.
Rizzo rules.
Yeah, you got to be a pretty cool guy to have Rizzo be your zodiac
What
sign.
about the like shrimp guy from Muppets from Space? I forget his name.
Oh yeah, he's cool.
He rules.
Or maybe at my true top of the mountain moment, I am the Swedish Chef. I think. Full third eye opened. I am the Swedish Chef.
Fully realized.
We'll figure out who our true Muppets are by the end of the series.
Yeah, we just have to take enough acid and you'll figure it out.
All right. Well, that will wrap up this episode of Cinematary. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Cinematary, on Twitter and Instagram at handle @Cinematary, and on Letterboxd at letterboxd.com/Cinematary, where we will list all the episodes or all the movies that we talked about in this episode. If you would like to support the show and give us $1 and be like, this is who your Muppet is. Head to patreon.com/Cinematary. Thank you to our patrons Cam, Chad Newsom, Candace Sisson, Ron Hayes, Teresa Marthathi, Titus Arthur, and Tyler Chandler. Thank you so much for your patronage. Next week, we're going to be continuing the Muppet series with Muppet Treasure Island and the Muppet Wizard of Oz.
If you pledge $1 now, I will get on a motorcycle dressed as Miss Piggy and crash through a stained glass window.
There, boom.
And it will be
Look at that.
It will be a beautiful image that will stay in your mind forever.
What a bargain.
It won't hurt.
Do they have a Muppet Return to Oz?
Jump in front of a taxi like Gonzo.
Whoa.
Jump in front of an Uber. Gonzo.
All right. Until Seth breaks through a stained glass. Thanks y'all for listening. We'll see you next week.
Bye.